Sicherheitsbewusst reden wir über Sicherheit. Mit spannenden Gästen und Thomas Geuser.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei Sicherheitsbewusst, or let me say welcome to Sicherheitsbewusst, our podcast today for the first time with an English episode. I have a very distinguished guest with me, Noah Price from G4S. Hello, Noah.
Hi, Thomas. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. You are looking on your business card. I see Academy International Director of G4S International. What does this mean?
Okay, so when people hear academy, they immediately jump to some form of school or physical location. And they're right in some ways. We are a very specialized learning and development function within our business, G4S. But the academy really is a network. In fact, it's a network of networks. And what we do is we harness the expertise of special individuals around our business who we call specialists, and they might have a specialism in a particular category of security products, or maybe just one security product on its own, a sector or vertical within our industry. Or they might be a functional specialist, such as HR, marketing, IT, AI. And it's the harnessing of all of this collective wisdom that we bring into the academy in order to add value to our customers, but also to ourselves internally. And we use that information to grow and ultimately to stay ahead of the emerging threat. And the threat does not stand still. The threat is always trying to outmaneuver the mitigations that we put in place to try to prevent it. So it's this constant game of cat and mouse. And the academy is a fantastic catalyst for driving growth and driving innovation and keeping everyone protected.
Coming back to the company, it's a G4S,
yes,
part of Allied Universal, employing about 800,000 people in the security business.
That's right.
Being the largest company within this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. We are the largest security provider. As you say, 800,000 employees across over 80 countries. And as you say, we were purchased by Allied Universal a couple of years ago. So I am the Academy Director for our international business, which is rest of world. It's everything outside of the United States.
Yes, and we're here in the rest of the world in Vienna at Wiener Messe, the Vienna Fair and Exhibition area. And here a congress is taking place right in the end of March. It's the ASIS International Europe conference. And you're here as one of the speakers. And I just experienced your workshop on the connected guard.
Connected officer, yeah. So the overall concept of the workshop was the future of physical security, and I was one of 5 companies and gave my vision statement on the connected officer, which is how we harness, again, speaking to a little bit about what the academy does, is how we harness all this plethora of data that is around us and connect the security officer with actionable intelligence to make that officer more situationally aware. So we're optimizing the performance of the overall security provision, not just the security officer, but the leadership team, the control rooms, the control centers, and also our customers, working symbiotically as one entity, one all-informed entity.
In every episode, I have a special first question. And this question goes like this. What was the last time that you were security aware?
The last time that I was security aware, I would say 1 minute ago, walking up the stairs to this location, I was checking exits, fire escapes. What would happen if something went wrong? It's the way my brain thinks. I am always thinking, fortunately, nefariously. How would I act if I was a bad actor? And that is just the way I've been trained and brought up. I'm always looking for the plan B. What would I do if? So unfortunately, I can't help myself. I'm always security aware. And I instill it in everybody that I meet. Even my family who are now, so well trained that they understand. Walking down a street, for example, I'm trying to teach them to look for the presence of the abnormal or the absence of the normal. And I think that is a very, really good thing to know, just to have that at the back of your mind.
Yes, indeed. And coming to your career, you had two careers. The first one was in the military, in the British Army, on several international spots. Could you tell us a bit more about this and about your transition to G4S, which was taking place some 17 years ago?
That's correct, yeah. So I'm really privileged. I've had the most amazing military career. And in fact, G4S is my second only ever employer. So I came straight from the army into G4S. But I was a Gurkha officer. So I had a most amazingly privileged position to lead Gurkha soldiers in an infantry battalion. And I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I had the amazing opportunity to go and fly helicopters as well in the British Army. And I did about 19, 20 years with the British Army and then left and went straight to G4S. And so I had an incredibly soft landing into G4S because our contract, our first ever contract, was to deliver pre-deployment training to the British Army. So we had 150 retired Gurkhas. The leadership team was 100% ex-Gurkha, either Nepali Gurkha or British Gurkha like myself. And it was very familiar for all of us. And we had a real sense of purpose. And I think that's one of the things you crave when you leave the forces, is you lack that sense of purpose. And also you miss that camaraderie. And we had both. We were doing something very, very important, training the British Army to go out on operations. We were role-playing Al-Qaeda and Taliban. So we were dressing up as these kinds of threat actors. And it was just the best ever contract. And from that, we learned a lot and we grew rapidly because we found that Gurkhas were very, very good at security. Surprise, surprise. And we found a niche within the critical national infrastructure sector. And we started to win contracts after contracts and really started to set the standard for what good security should really look like. And I've got many stories of amazing contracts that we have won since with that workforce. And then it sort of morphed from not being just Gurkha, but people or ex-military, but also non-military types who had maybe an aspiration to want to be military, but really blossomed under having that sense of purpose and doing something that was very, very important. And we galvanized this amazing incentivized workforce who understood their sense of purpose and had a unifying sense of purpose in what they were delivering.
And is this a service that G4S is still offering to, let's say, companies or security services?
So sadly, we were a joint venture at the time. And that joint venture, for amicable reasons, came to a very happy ending. But a lot of the contracts that we set up, namely Hinkley Point C is probably the biggest example, a nuclear new build construction site in the southwest of the United Kingdom, amongst many others, still exists. And we got these contracts to the point where they were self-developing, self-managed. And Hinkley really is an exemplar of what good should look like in the security industry.
Last year, G4S published a global security report, a survey with among 1,700 respondents, chief security officers from various industries. And what struck me most, that there was an estimated $1 trillion damages by physical security incidents globally annually.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. So yes, you're right. So the survey, 1,775 chief security officers from across the globe. It was an anonymous survey, so they didn't know who they were responding to. And they had a combined revenue, I think, of a quarter of the world's GDP. So, absolutely huge in terms of the quality and level of response. But you're absolutely right. The statistics that we learned from this first of its kind World Security Report were eye-watering in some respects. And we really did learn a lot of information from this report.
Sicherheitsbewusst entsteht in Kooperation mit der FH Campus Wien. Fachbereich Risiko- und Sicherheitsmanagement sowie G4S Secure Solutions Österreich.
Coming back to this conference, so it's 900 people from all over Europe, let's say, industry service providers gathering here. It's about nobody in Austria is recognizing that. Is this because the security business is so humble, or do they not like to be seen? Does security in general want to be invisible?
Well, I think sometimes security needs to be invisible. The anonymity is in part its protection, but sometimes it needs to be overt, because deterrence is the primary objective of any security solution. So that there's varying arguments of whether you should be overt or covert. It depends what you're trying to do. But I think events like this event we're at today is all about networking and bringing together and understanding what each provider can deliver. And I think if you operate in stovepiped, myopic worlds, you're never going to learn. It's all about cross-pollination. And again, it speaks a little bit to what the Academy is trying to achieve. It's that cross-pollination of knowledge. And through that combined knowledge, we will become stronger as a security industry.
In your workshop, you mentioned 3 ways how AI might be used within the security industry. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So, the first point to make is that I think AI has, come to the forefront recently because of inventions like OpenAI's ChatGPT. But actually, AI has been around for many, many years. We use it every single day. We might not realize it, but we're using it. For example, autocorrect is AI. In our mobile phones, there's an abundance of AI. But there are 3 main things that AI can do. It can either be advisory, it can be supervisory, or it can be controlling. And one of the questions that I was asked today in the workshop is, I think delegates were worried about the controlling nature of AI, and they're very right to be concerned, because AI is not there yet to be able to control. It can control in some circumstances, but we are using it more in an advisory and a supervisory function. AI at the moment is a tool to be used, a tool to, certainly from my perspective, to make our officers more aware, to help deliver greater situational awareness. So it is a tool to assist. You look at ChatGPT, it is nothing more than a predictive large language model. It is predicting the next word in a sentence. That's really all it is. But people think it is sentient. It's not sentient. It can't think. It can't think of anything new. It is only essentially rephrasing all of the information that it has gathered in its knowledge base. But AI, we're on a fantastically exciting journey with AI as it advances. But that also presents a threat as well, because threat actors can use artificial intelligence against us, and that is a concern. And we need to come up with ways of detecting nefarious uses of AI. And back to my point about emerging threats, the moment that we've establish how to detect nefarious use of AI, then the threat actors will come up with another way of masquerading AI. So we're in this constant game of cat and mouse. But it is a fascinating, very, very, very powerful tool.
Yes, and the connected officer would mean that it is becoming a kind of platform and a carrier of sensors, of cameras that might provide the data for analytics.
Yeah, so it's a two-way street. So at the front line, if you like, you have the connected officer who's connected with information that is being assimilated through advanced AI analytics, feeding that information to the officer, and the leadership team are aware of emerging threats, and we're feeding officers with actionable intelligence. But at the same time, the officer is equipped with an array of sensors and detection devices and information gathering tools, such as body-worn cameras that are live streaming, mobile sensors, location tracking. And so that information is being fed up into this central brain that is analyzing the data and feeding it back down to the officer, keeping him safe, situationally aware. And overall, delivering a far stronger security effect than, let's look at a disconnected officer. An officer who is not connected in any way would be purely responding to a set of written instructions. You think about carrier pigeons back in the First World War. Information was slow, could be confused, misunderstood. Now we're getting far more accurate, precise, timely information, which overall aids to that greater situational awareness.
If we now compare the public sector and the private sector in the security field, who is ahead now technologically?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's hard to pick a leader. I think each have their own merits. It depends how much money there is to invest. In fact, one of the questions that was asked today was about the primary effects of a particular product or technology, and I made the point that there are secondary and tertiary effects of a particular product, but that wasn't maybe the primary objective of that technological product. But that's where innovation comes from. So you're getting innovations from both the private and public sector, where people are adopting these technologies, maybe not in the way that it was originally designed, but then the designer of that technology will say, oh, they're now using it for this. I hadn't thought of that. And that then feeds back into the development cycle. It's fascinating to see how we start to use technologies that we hadn't been designed in that particular way and another particular way, and that's how innovation and new ideas are created. And it's a wonder to watch.
Mm-hmm. The title of this conference is From Risk to Resilience. What if parts of society don't even know about their risks?
I think awareness is, back to the point I made about my own family. It's good to be aware. And, there are a lot of cognitive biases that we fall prey to. One of them is because nothing bad has happened in the past, we think that nothing bad is going to happen in the future. But, I'm always of the view that it's not a case of if, it's a case of when. And, I think we should, I don't mean to give people nightmares, but we should be aware of what could happen and be prepared.
Sicherheitsbewusst. Gespräche über Safety, Security und Strategy.
Is the security industry a kind of conservative industry when it comes to adopting new technologies?
I think it's cautious because, especially now, technology is advancing at such a pace. It's, by the time you have procured and onboarded and trained people to use a new technology, there will be a new technology that's arriving that maybe is twice, 3 times as better as the one you've just onboarded. And so it's a challenge, I think, back to the conservatism, is what technology do you back? And are you going to hold and wait for the next best thing, or do you go with what is presented at the time? And there are certain ways to mitigate that risk, and that is to adopt technologies that are agnostic and then can be easily replaced and seamlessly fit into new technologies. And the industry is understanding that now. So if you procure something, it can't just be 100% that technology forever and ever. A lot of CCTV cameras are agnostic, and they can plug into any system, for example. But yeah, and I think also it's an interesting question, because I think the industry is slow to move to adopt certain technologies. It's absolutely apparent to me that technologies are a huge enabler. They can massively maximize the efficiency of what we do. But it's proving to the industry that technology can actually do this. And it's a sad fact of life that actually it takes something bad to happen for security to improve. And when something bad happens, this speaks back to the cognitive biases that I mentioned. When something bad happens, security dramatically improves, but then you fall back into that sort of cognitive bias again, where nothing's happened for a long time. And also, security becomes a victim of its own success because it's working, it's displacing the threat and keeping the threat at bay. that also compounds this cognitive bias that people think, well, why do we need security? Nothing bad has ever happened.
Yes, and for most people, there's no chlorine prevention.
True.
If we met again 10 years from now at a conference like this, what would be different?
Well, I think, for starters, AI would have advanced massively. And I don't think in our lifetimes we will see robotics at a state that can replace the human element. You are always going to need a human in the loop. But I think we will see a much stronger maximization of efficiency derived from technology and AI. But you will get to this irreducible minima where you cannot reduce further the security officer on the ground. You're always going to need that response. The primary effects in any security solution are detect, delay, and respond. So, detection, we will see far more technology and AI in the detection effect. Delay is really down to physical barriers and things that will physically delay the threat actor. And then you need the ability to respond to what you have detected and to what you have delayed. So we will maybe see a reduction in physical security officers on the ground, but far more enabled, far more technically savvy. And, in 10 years' time, there could be AI and new technologies that we don't even know about right now that will be enabling the security officer of the future.
And we need to attract talent to that.
Yes.
And if there's newbies entering the industry now, what would be your wise advice to them?
Well, to understand that actually security is a fascinating career path, and it's only going to get more interesting. And back to what I said about that sense of purpose and that sense of belonging and having a unifying purpose, with the adaptation and the adoption of technology as a tool to enable what we do, it's going to become very, very interesting. So, my advice would be to become technically savvy, to be able to use these tools fluently. If we look at, the up and coming generation now, they are technically savvy, but we need as an industry to make that career path interesting for them in order to be able to attract and also to retain these individuals, because it's detrimental to any organization to have a very high churn rate of individuals. We want longevity, so that we're not having that brain drain within our organization or anyone else's organization.
Noah, was there anything that you would like to talk about that I forgot to ask?
No, but one bit of advice I would like to say: if something feels wrong, it generally is wrong. I think as human beings, we are very, very good at actually sensing the presence of the abnormal. We might not be able to put our finger on exactly what it is.
Gut feeling?
Gut feeling, yeah. Because, we've evolved over millions of years, and there's a reason we're still here because of that gut feeling. So if something doesn't feel right, it generally isn't right. So, question, why am I feeling like this? And, if there is any doubt, there is no doubt. So you need to do something about it. So that would be my sort of general advice. We are all innately security experts in our own way, because otherwise, as I said, we wouldn't still be here as a human species.
Is this Gurkha style?
I think it's no, not necessarily Gurkha style. It's just general human being style. We all have that tingling in the back of our neck. If something doesn't feel right, it generally isn't right.
In the end, I ask all my guests for a recommendation. What kind of literature would you recommend to our listeners?
Right. So if there's one book I could recommend, it's called The Rules of Security by Paul Martin. It is, I think, one of the best books out there for anyone to want to understand, what security, what risk is all about, how to mitigate risk, and it's written in a wonderful way that makes sense to the newcomer to security. And that's what I recommend to anybody joining G4S. Read that book because it is absolutely brilliant.
But not only for G4S.
Oh yeah, for anyone. Yeah, for anyone. But as within my own company, that's what I say. read that.
Noah, thank you for this very interesting interview here at the ASIS conference in Vienna.
Thank you very much for having me.
Stay safe, stay secure and stay tuned hier bei Sicherheitsbewusst. Thank you.
Danke fürs Zuhören. Wenn Ihnen diese Folge gefallen hat, abonnieren Sie den Podcast Sicherheitsbewusst auf Spotify, Apple Podcasts oder anderen Podcast-Plattformen. Stay safe, stay secure und stay tuned. Bis zum nächsten Mal hier bei Sicherheitsbewusst.